and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Cheri Duckworth, and joining me today is Mr. Scott Weisenbaker. He's a founding executive director for Solutions of North Texas. I'm so sorry about that. Thanks for coming back, Scott, to talk with us today. We're talking about sober living.
Absolutely.
Which, sounds to a lot of people are hearing, well, what is sober living exactly, and how does that work? So can you define for us, what does that mean, sober living?
That is a confusing statement because we hear halfway houses, transitional living, recovery residences. Right. We actually call it sober living plus because we believe that the crucial time when a man or a woman comes out of treatment or possibly the emergency room, when they've been treated for addiction, maybe even coming out of the jail if they got a DWI, there's a crucial period of time when they first come out that they need a lot of direction. They have to kind of rebuild their life, because if they go back, say, to the same house with the same family, may be a great place, but if nothing has really changed, they're in danger of repeating the same behaviors, which is why we have people who go to treatment dozens of times.
Because they get back out, they get back in the same environment, they have all the same triggers, and so they go back to what they were doing before.
Absolutely.
That's what happens. It's just a cycle. Sober living plus, what is the difference between sober living and sober living plus?
Well, you might have a house where the rule is pay your rent and don't drink, and that's about it. And we believe it's such a precarious time when somebody comes out, because if they don't have the skills to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, in our facility, the parents, the church, a complete stranger can pay their first month and a half. But from that point forward, everybody goes to work. We help them find a job. And our price point, because we're a nonprofit, is low enough that they can afford it on a minimum wage job. So it doesn't matter if they get a job at McDonald's. If they're willing to go to work, they make enough money. And that's just part of it. A job won't keep somebody sober. But if you don't have the skills on how to dress appropriately and interview and find and hold that job and be a good employee, then you're constantly going to fall into a state of crisis, and that will definitely lead back to the addiction.
So with Solutions of North Texas, you all provide sober living, plus you're also including, this is how you continue to live out in the real world and stay sober by being responsible, basically.
That's our main function. We ask for a 90-day minimum stay, but they often will stay for a year, possibly longer. If they stay much past a year, they usually become part of my staff. But we work with 42 men and women, and they're in separate facilities. They don't even meet each other. There's so many distractions as they come out that we really need to keep them focused on, the real big thing is they have to get a connection to God, and we're passionate about helping them grow their spiritual life, because if they don't incorporate a few principles into their life, which is we're going to look at ourselves, get well, and get out there and help other men and women, people who are suffering. If they don't incorporate those skills into all the life skills necessary for holding a job and budgeting their bank account, that's what's going to keep them sober permanently, and then they can walk through anything, because life is tragic and things happen, and if we're just sitting on our fingers hoping we don't drink because we get stressed out, then we're in big trouble when something really bad happens.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot with making sure that for somebody to maintain their sobriety, they have to have some type of spiritual connection, that's a huge part of keeping their sobriety.
It's the biggest part.
The biggest part of keeping their sobriety. So I think that's really a great focus for you all. That's the foundation. Family programs. So how do family programs work? We think of somebody that's coming out of a situation like jail or maybe a rehab facility. They have families. So how does that work?
Let's look at the family. Maybe it's a really nice family, a good Christian family in a nice neighborhood with good schools. And unfortunately, they'll think that we're not the problem. We're a good family. The problem resides in this, the affected loved one and their
why
family.
Do I need to be a part of it? I'm not the one with the addiction.
But what we know through experience is that if the family gets involved and becomes a support system and they do the recovery together, their chances of permanent sobriety increase dramatically. And we also have no shortage of families that their child goes off to treatment numerous times or jail, and then you have this adult child that's using drugs in your house, and You know, it's the same thing over and over. There's a breakdown in the family system that we need to get them together. So we have a 6-month program that we call the Family Solution, where we walk with the family for 6 months. We meet with them once a week, whether it's face-to-face or through the internet if they're spread across the country. And it's really to put the family back together as a support system for those people within the family that are struggling. And if they'll do that, it makes it so much easier.
I'm sure, because they're all speaking the same language. They all understand where the person who has, who is in recovery, what they're going through. They're all in it together, because a family, you're like a machine working all together. So if one part of the machine isn't working, it's going to affect the whole machine. So I think it's great that you work with everyone.
Right, and no family is safe.
No.
I mean, there is, the addiction can strike any family. And another person who's overlooked all the time are the children. And there's some great programs. We partner with the Betty Ford Clinic to make sure that the children between the ages of 6 and 13, that their needs are addressed, because they know something's going on, but they know everybody's lying to them. And it's like, well, mom's sick. And they, like everything else, if you're not honest with them, then they're going to decide on their own what's happening. And usually they think that it's something that they've done, and they take on this guilt and shame for something they don't even understand. And that can have a negative impact on their life. So it's imperative that we look at the entire family and make sure that everybody is doing their part to find the same freedom and recovery that their affected loved one, because enlarging your spiritual life and working together, it doesn't hurt anybody. You don't have to be a drug addict to get the benefits of working together as a single unit.
I think you brought up an interesting point, though, is the kids are asking what's going on, and you're telling them that their loved one is sick.
Right.
But nobody's really telling them the truth. So for a child to have an adult and they know the adult's lying to them, I mean, that's totally messing with their trust, and their ability to trust adults. But for the adult watching today going, but how do I explain this to a child? What advice do you give parents when they're trying to explain to their child what is going on?
Well, we would suggest that they get together with the Betty Ford Clinic, because that is made available to everyone. It's very inexpensive. If they don't have the funding, they'll help them find the funding. But it's important that we address everybody. 50% of the calls that come into our place are families that are in crisis, and it's overwhelming. When they know somebody needs help, and you go on the computer and you start doing searches for treatments or drug addiction, it's overwhelming, and you don't know where the best place to go is. And often it's who has the best web page. And so we've taken these phone calls and we really ask them, what's happening, and we're, yes, we can help you. Tell us what you've seen, and what are you afraid of, and what would you like to see, so we can assess the situation and then make a decision on where is the proper treatment center to refer them to. Okay. By discipline, distance, or of course it comes down to money so often as well, because this is all very expensive.
Yes, definitely. Now, Solutions of North Texas, do you all do interventions?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a vital part of the whole industry. There's a lot of people that feel, well, they just need to hit their bottom and it has to be their choice. And yes, they do have to cooperate with us in order to recover, but a lot of people die looking for their bottom. And an intervention is leveraging somebody into making better decisions or finding help. And I think the best interventions happen in the back of a police car, or in the county jail, and we'll go in and talk to folks all the time. But it's not always a scheduled intervention, and you can't schedule that magic moment in the back of a police car where they finally ask for help, and you have an officer who knows the resources in their town and carries a card or says, you know what, there's a guy in our community who can help you, or here's a number that you can call if you're serious. So since we can't schedule that kind of magic to happen, this is where professional interventions come in to play. And, you can call a professional who can set this all up with the family so that we can effectively leverage someone into treatment.
Because obviously if somebody's taking the step to hold an intervention, it has affected the family in a great way. They're all wanting their loved one to get help. What are some mistakes that people make whenever they are trying to set up an intervention?
Well, a lot of times we'll watch television and we'll see an intervention happen on TV, and the family will try to do one on their own. And that's not always a bad thing, but you know, a lot of times you can just ask the person. It's like, we're really worried about this drug use, and you know it's a problem. We've talked about it. You know, what can we do to help you get into treatment? You know, if you ask somebody, they may just say, I've been waiting for you to notice or ask or to bring it to light. But there's the worst mistake they can make is to throw money at the situation and just say, well, at least I know he's here. I know he's doing things that I'm not comfortable with, but at least he's in my house. I know he's here, because they're always afraid he's going to wind up in a ditch or in the jail. And when we try to sweep it under the carpet and just try to maintain our drug addict and, you know, keep their car working and make sure that we're keeping them out of scrapes and providing a safe place for them to live, that's prolonging their misery, because until their world falls apart, they have no reason to see that, hey, this really is a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
if I can have my cake and eat it too, why not?
And that's why on the flip side, when they go through recovery, the family program is so important, so that there's not that, they're not continuing the process of basically
Absolutely.
supporting them and keeping them comfortable. We don't want them to be comfortable.
And you're guaranteeing that we know at the end it's going to end up with death if we continue to use it. So if you make it possible for them to do it longer, and these kids are using heroin, something so deadly, that they're basically ensuring that they're going to die in the bed of $1 million home. And thinking that we're doing the right thing. We go from one extreme to the other. We're either pushing money at it, or we're just, you know, get out. And there's a whole world in between.
Right.
But the family program also will put families back together, because there's usually tension between the parents. They want the same thing, but they don't see eye to eye.
So it's learning that, how do I not enable them, but still support them, but not give them too much? So finding that balance of what that looks like is why we need people like you
Absolutely.
at Solutions of North Texas to help go, okay, this is what that looks like, because it is so complicated, and we don't want our loved one to end up, you know, that person who, you know, has OD'd, you know, and we don't want that to happen to anybody that we love, but at the same time, we don't want to see them, you know, homeless and suffering either. So, you know, it's just so difficult when you love somebody that has an addiction. How do you love them in a healthy way? You know,
Right.
Learning what that looks like is so hard sometimes. So it's good that you're there to help our community out. What would you like the community to know about what you all do and how you all get this done? In the last few seconds, what would you want them to know about Solutions of North Texas?
Well, if they call us and they're just, whether it's questions or they're in absolute crisis, even if their person doesn't want help or may never be a fit for what we're doing, we know the people to put them into contact with. We make a little plan for their family and really look at it. And that call is free. It's a free consultation where we can make the referral and not just say, you should look up this one treatment center down the street. We'll actually call them, get them on the phone, and we can work that out for them. So the first thing they need to do is just call and talk to somebody about what's going on. And we kind of call ourselves recovery specialists, because regardless of what's going on, whether process addiction or substance abuse, we can help.
Thank you so much for being here today, Scott. Please check out their website, www.sontx.org. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for watching Joy in Our Town.